From Hollywood, California, welcome to Razor Riffs with your host, Keith Reza.
Hey Keith.
Hi, Chris. So, Chris, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And we talked a little about the Knicks, but you got the Princess Bride because you found out the Knicks drafted someone you didn't want, and you were all angry at the
That's right.
audition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So, so I was
exactly.
wondering if you could
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
that
The day of the audition, I'm in a bus going up Central Park West to William Goldman's apartment, and I'm reading the paper, the report that the Knicks had drafted a guy by the name of Kenny Walker. And I thought it was a big mistake, and I was on fire. And I walk into Goldman's apartment where they're having the audition, literally talking about it. And I'm saying, they're saying, how are you, Rob Reiner? Very congenial guy. Hey, Chris, nice to meet you. How are you? And I said, well, I'd be lying if I said I'm great. And they said, why? And I said, because the Knicks just drafted Kenny Walker. Well, as it turns out, William Goldman was a huge New York Knicks fan.
yeah.
And we got into this conversation about the drafting of Kenny Walker, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going on and on and on. And finally, after about 10 minutes, Rob Reiner looks at us and goes, excuse me, do you think maybe you could read, Chris? And I said, yes, of course, of course. And I read, and the rest is history.
So in a way, as much as that was like such a terrible draft pick, in a way that was kind of like your lucky draft pick, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Good, right. Very good way of putting it.
I wanted to ask you about the Princess Bride first, because that's a big movie. But like, how was the training on riding the horses and stuff? Was that something you could do easily, or did you do that before?
Well, no, I didn't really have that much of a background in riding. I think I'd ridden a couple of times when I was younger, just for fun and not, with animals that are as what purebred and as well, animals that are well trained, particularly for movies. They're not necessarily docile.
Yeah,
And when we got our mounts. Um, Chris Guest got a big chestnut mare with I can't remember the animal's name, but it was a very, sort of like sweetheart or so, I don't know exactly what it was, but it
right.
turned out that the animal was a pain in the ass. It gave Guest all kinds of trouble. Whereas my horse, whose name was Fury, was a was a pussycat.
Right.
Oh, go figure. Go figure. We did a lot of riding when Chris and I weren't working on set. We were at a place called, I think it was called Rickmansworth. I'm not sure exactly. I think so. And it was a stable that specialized in riding for movies.
Right.
And we rode those horses as much as we could every day. And then, of course, most of it got cut out of the movie. Basically, it
Yeah.
was the ride ups and that was it. We'd ride up, and in fact, they used a stunt guy to do the jump off um, onto the horse that I do at one point, which is not me, uh, because they were afraid that I would fracture my manhood and therefore not be able to continue in the movie. But it was a great experience. I love the riding, and as it turns out, I was able to do some sort of on a couple of other pictures, which is wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. I want you said you had a stunt guy on that. So like was it you or the stunt guy who pulled Robin onto the horse? Like,
A good question. Probably the stunt guy. Honestly don't remember.
oh,
Maybe
I
I
was gonna
blocked off that part because I like to think that I did it, but maybe I probably didn't.
I was gonna say, because as an actor, if you're just getting used to riding horses and then you have to like take the girl, you're like, oh, now I have to rely on her safety.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's just kind of hard.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So I wanted to go back a little to Dog Day Afternoon because you did theater and stuff, and I wanted to ask, like, when you were a young actor, when you got that movie, did you think, okay, now I can make a living as an actor? Like, did that movie just change your whole career, or did you think, okay,
Not really, because I had a career in the theater.
yeah,
I've been working in the theater for years. In fact, I was in my I was 30, 31 years old when I did Dog Day. And so I had been on Broadway. I'd done a couple of Broadway shows. I'd worked extensively in regional theater. I thought I was going to be basically a theater actor who every once in a while does a movie. I had aspirations, obviously, as we
Yeah.
all do, to sort of climb the hierarchy, if you want to call it that. But just to do, more work that was more recognized by people, and that tends to be, at least it still is, that is, in television and movies. And so I'd done a couple of bit parts on television. I was on a soap opera for a little while. In fact, that was my first job in New York. I was on a soap for like 6 months, playing a bit part on a soap
Yeah.
that paid the rent. It was actually great. And then I got a Broadway show, and then I was out of town for 3 months, and then it came in and was in the show The Rothschilds for 9 months after it opened. So I was
Yeah.
in that show for almost a year. And then I was the replacement for Raul Julia in a show called Two Gentlemen of Verona, which was a musical, a Broadway musical. And I replaced Raul in that show, and I was in that show for a number of months. So and when I wasn't doing that, I was working at the Hartford Stage Company, or I did a play at the Shaw Festival in Canada, and so I was a working actor. So it
Yeah.
didn't really have the sense to me of anything other than, oh, this is going to be cool to work with Pacino and Sidney Lumet, whom I kind of knew. I knew Al Pacino as well because Al was the boyfriend of the female lead in The Rothschilds, the Broadway musical that I was first in. And
Oh,
I
nice.
kind of knew him socially because he was around with Jill Clayburgh, who was his girlfriend at the time. And I knew Sidney Lumet from a movie that my ex-wife Susan had done with him called Loving Molly. So I got to know Sidney, not well, but I knew him. So it was kind of a comfortable situation in the first place to go into an audition room with those two people, with Al Pacino and with Sidney Lumet, and
Yeah.
do a reading. And also, it was a great script and a terrific character. So, the onus on necessarily proving myself going forward in the movies was not really there. It
Right.
was, this is good. This will be a cool gig. This will be a really cool job to do.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, it was a kind of stepping stone for me.
So what's because you do theater and stuff, like what's the high of doing theater? Is it the live,
Performing in front of an audience.
yeah,
That's
performing?
the high. You have that sort of symbiotic relationship with an audience where, they're sort of guiding you through the play every night. It's different every night. People say all the time, "Oh, how can you do a show for 8 months, 6 months, a year, or whatever?" But the audience is always different. It's
Yeah.
never the same. And if you set up expectations that it's going to be the same, you get in trouble.
Yeah.
It keeps you from playing moment to moment and letting the audience kind of follow along. If it's a comedy, then the laughs come, but they're never in the same place
Oh,
uh,
for sure.
from
Yeah.
night to night, or seldom in the same place. And with serious theater, it's essentially about whether they're paying attention or not.
Yeah. Which one's harder for you? Is comedy hard for you, or is dramatic pieces hard
Oh,
for
I
you?
think for everybody that comedy is harder
Yeah.
because it requires a certain kind of timing that you either have or you don't have.
Yeah.
Um, I think in a certain respect, it's analogous to music in the sense that it's it's predictable in the sense that if you time the line right, then it will get a laugh or it
Oh,
will
yeah.
be funny. It may not get a laugh, but it'll be funny. I mean, that was one of the lessons I learned with The Princess Bride was that at the audition, I read a scene that I thought was a very serious scene. And at the end of the scene, Rob Reiner broke out laughing. And at first I thought, what did I do wrong? And then I realized comedy is serious business. If the person in the scene is taking it seriously, if it's funny, then the audience will laugh.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Oh, for sure. I was in this play, the Crucible, and I wasn't a big part. I was just like one of the townies who's arresting the witch. And during the play, we had an earthquake, and no one the whole thing was shaking. No one knew what to do. So like I just said witchcraft. It got a huge laugh, right?
Mhm.
And then
Timing.
I and then I did it the second show. No one laughed. So I
Yeah.
was
Well, because the timing wasn't the same.
yeah, but it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like I changed to
exactly.
Arthur Miller.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So then let's talk about Fright Night because Fright Night was your first movie where you were the main star, and the whole.
Wasn't the first, but it certainly was the probably the more important. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Did you have like anxiety on that, like realizing, oh my God, this whole movie is carrying
Not
on me?
Not at all. Not at all. I read the script initially, and at first thought, when I got the script, and I was told that it was an offer. They sent the script and they said, "This is an offer. The director and the producer would like to meet you, but this is an offer, irrespective of whether you take the meeting or not."
Right.
And I looked at it, and at the time I was doing a lot of sort of prestige television specials. Movies of the week, but also like Hallmark Hall of Fame, like adaptations of great novels and stuff like that. And I was pretty full of myself. And I was looking at the cover of the script and thinking, a movie called Fright Night, I can't do a movie called Fright Night. But and I've always believed this, out of politeness, if somebody offers you something, you read it. And
Right.
then you say no, which I was fully intending to do. And then I started reading it, and as soon as I got like 10, 15 minutes into the script, I was completely captivated, and uh, uh, told my agent I wanted to meet the director, thinking, well, maybe he'll, his my meeting with him will convince me not to do it, but it had the opposite effect.
Yeah.
I was immediately taken with his knowledge of filmmaking and what he had in mind in terms of the way the movie was going to be made. And so I did it, and was comfortable from the first day. But we all were, because we spent like 3 weeks rehearsing. So
Oh my
the
gosh.
cast got to know each other. We talked about the characters' histories. We talked about their relationships, and we worked on the scenes so that when we went on the set, we weren't
It
the only
was
thing that
all
was
there,
stopping
yeah.
us was special effects, which
Oh,
is very much the way Sidney Lumet worked, which is he rehearsed
yeah.
for weeks ahead of time.
And that's very uncommon, right? Like most movies probably give
Very.
you 2 weeks to rehearse,
Oh
right?
no, you don't get that much.
Oh,
You're lucky.
really?
You're lucky if you get a read through and maybe a couple of days.
Oh, yeah.
Lucky, lucky.
Yeah.
Whereas Lumet uh, uh, rehearsed it like a play, where you went in rehearsal every day. I mean, I wasn't in rehearsal that often because I wasn't in that much of the movie. But in the bank, for instance, the bank there was sort of made up furniture in the rehearsal studio, and there were props, and so that they had a feel for what the real day was going to be like, and
Yeah.
then they worked through the psychology of the characters and their interrelationships. They worked through the moments of the movie, what they meant, et cetera, et cetera. And so it was, you go on the set and you're ready,
Yeah.
rather
How
than, oh, let's figure it out now.
how has times changed as an actor where like, when you're first starting it's all about ooh, word of mouth. Chris is very talented and all this stuff. And then they go to video and reels where you have your reel and your video, and then you go to self auditions because you've been through all of it. And I want to know what time zone, like how did you adapt to each zone like that?
Well, when I started, it was all auditions.
Yeah.
That is live auditions. You'd go into a room and there were a bunch of guys there who were similar to you. And it was actually a hell of a lot nicer in the sense that you had the feeling of the community of actors. And it didn't feel like competition. I mean, it did to a certain extent. We're all human. On the
Right.
one hand, we all wanted the part. But on the other hand, you run into the same guys after a while. You become friends. Or at least you understand that you're part of a community that gets rejected most of the time, and so you are fellows in that world of, well, I'm going to work hard, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get this because the odds are against me. But we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
Whereas with recorded auditions, which I hate, by the way, um, there's no sense of your even if you're in a room and you're by yourself auditioning for a person like you are uh, for a live audition, there's no sense of that interaction, that humanity that you're trying to communicate. You don't have somebody reading with you, or if you do, they're off. They're standing on the other side of the room and you're holding a phone up, or you're sitting in front of your computer. And I've always hated it.
Yeah.
I've always felt that it was just such a difficult way to evaluate whether somebody's right for a role or not. But that's the way things are done. I don't worry about it anymore because I don't do it anymore.
Right. Well, no, you make a good point because there's something about energy that can make people, bring out something just in that moment, kind of
Oh,
like
absolutely,
theater. Yeah.
absolutely. And part of it is that even if you're nervous, which you usually are, that's part of what gives it a little bump,
Yeah.
But to manufacture it in front of your own computer or your phone, it's a totally different matter. Some
Yeah.
people are good at it. I'm not.
Now, you talked about rejection because I've heard you say in other interviews, and you're absolutely right. Acting is a big, like, if you can't handle rejection, you're in the wrong business.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, like, uh we all can handle rejection, but it all kind of does hurt us a little. And I want to know,
Oh,
how do you move on? Just like,
I think it almost always does in a major way, regardless.
right.
Especially if you really want something. If you
Yeah.
go in thinking, I'm really right for this, I should be doing this, but sometimes you're not, but you go because you need a job.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's that simple. You got a mortgage to pay or rent to pay, children to put through college, whatever. And so I've done probably more than not of auditions where I've gone in thinking I'm not really right for this, but I'm going to audition for it. And if you're not really totally committed to the character,
Mhm.
then no wonder you don't get it.
Right.
But sometimes it's an imperative.
Yeah.
It's both a financial and an emotional imperative.
No, definitely. And you made a good point how, like, because we do have bills to pay and stuff. I'm sure you've taken a project where you weren't really thrilled about the project, but you
Oh, are
just
you
did it.
kidding? Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've got a couple of movies that I've done. I call them mortgage movies. Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely. Kids to support. 3 kids. I just turned the light on so you could see me. I got up here so late. Anyway, yes.
so I wanted to go to Child's Play a little because Child's Play was great and stuff, and that's a movie where your character gets beat up pretty bad, but you survive, and everyone's thinking if you're ever going to be in the sequels or whatever. And I was wondering, did sequels ever come your way?
No.
No.
The second one was done not by Tom Holland, whom I'd done the first one with. And in fact, the reason I did the first one was because Tom and I worked together on Fright Night.
Yeah.
And so I trusted him. I knew he'd take good care of me, but also that I would take good care of him because Tom, as he will probably admit readily, can be a hothead at times, especially when it comes to studio people or producers giving him a hard time about, running behind or trying to change scenes that have already been agreed upon. And I think that it was a very symbiotic relationship, but it wasn't one that I was willing to continue with another director. I didn't believe in the project that much to want to move on with it.
Yeah.
Although it's been enormously successful, and in fact, I just was at a Comic-Con with Don Mancini, who came up with the original idea, and it did the television series as well, and I think a few of the sequels.
Yeah.
And a lovely guy, wonderful guy. And, we talked about the television series and he wants me to come on the series. Who knows whether that'll
That
ever happen. Yeah.
that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
How cool though is cons? Because when you were starting, that they were very like small and in between. Where like if you did a con, like people are like, oh, these are for hardcore fans, but now they're super super popular.
Oh
Like,
man, it's totally changed. When I first started doing them, it was at a time when I was working sort of sporadically, which is not that unusual in any actor's career, but certainly was happening in mine at the time. And I feel good if I came home with, a few bucks. And they were in high school gyms sometimes and auditoriums and what have you. And I've seen over particularly the last 5 years, but definitely over the last 10,
yeah,
this explosion where, I'm disappointed if a con I go to, it doesn't have between 25 and 50,000 people. Sometimes they have, the big ones, Toronto and Salt Lake City, there are 100,000 people,
Yeah.
a lot of people moving around
Yeah.
in convention centers. And they've become not only more lucrative, but they've also become more acceptable to do in terms of, oh, well, it's, your career is not on its last legs if you do a Comic-Con.
Oh, for
I
sure.
think for
Yeah.
a while people were thinking, oh, well, he's doing Comic-Cons. Boy, he must really be desperate. Now, the list of people who do them, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, and then you could also get work from cons too, because there's filmmakers all, they go there to what's the word, network or whatever. You know
Hmm.
what I mean?
Sure.
So,
Yep.
I wanted to ask you, when people ask for your autograph, do you have like a saying that you just write, and or is it a spur in the moment type of thing? Because when people,
I try to talk to everybody individually.
yeah,
I always ask them, well, what do you, first of all, what, I introduce myself to them and tell me your name. And then we talk about, what you would like on the autograph, because I don't do it. Obviously, there's going to be a signature.
right,
And if they want it personalized, some people don't want it personalized. Some people just want the signature and the name of the character, and that's it. Sometimes
yeah.
they want a quote. It all depends. And I try to accommodate each fan.
Yeah, whenever people ask for my autograph, it doesn't happen a lot
Oh,
because
really?
I do stand-up comedy, so that's how
Oh,
I'm
really?
kind of, yeah, so that's kind of how I'm known, and I do these cons every now and then. Whenever they ask
Mhm.
for my autograph, I always say, "Don't do crack." I just think it's funny.
It's a great one.
I wanted to ask about Whispers because that movie, nowadays there's all these movies where they're doing, a scene and then they reshoot the same scene, something like that. Whispers, I would argue, kind of had the formula of that, and that was made in the 90s. And I was like, when you read that script, did you see that that was going to happen and stuff?
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember much about the making of that movie. Uh,
Okay.
I honestly, as you're talking, I'm going, Whispers. I know the movie. I know who was in it with me because she's a friend of mine, Victoria Tennant. But
Right.
other than that, I remember not a moment.
Oh, okay. So that could be good, could be bad. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, exactly.
I'm scared to ask about Dark Tide. Is that one of those movies you don't remember much
Well,
of?
actually, I remember that one, but first of all, that was a mortgage movie.
Yeah,
But also, I got to dive.
yeah.
I had to get certified as a scuba diver, and that was the most rewarding part of doing that movie, other than helping me pay my expenses. But also, it was a surreal experience to dive off the coast of some of those islands in the Philippines where the water is crystal clear and you're diving among a school of, 100,000 fish at 100 feet below the surface. They're swimming alongside a gorgeous um, um, tropical fish of some kind, or in that case, in that movie, that was also about poisonous
Snakes. Yeah,
aquatic snakes.
yeah.
So we were around them a lot in the water as well. So
So
that,
they were real snakes.
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh my gosh, Chris, did that
absolutely. Yeah,
freak you out?
the ones that were in the water were definitely real. They're
Oh,
very shy. This is what I remember about the particular kind of snake that's in the waters off the Philippines. And of
oh.
course, I'm sure there were scenes in which a fake snake is used, but most of the time they were real poisonous snakes.
Uh, Snakes scare me. I would never want to whenever I see a
Oh,
snake, I like to run away.
I don't blame you.
So I have five more questions for you. I want to respect your time, so these are just
Sure.
kind of fast questions. You like to cook too, yeah? You have a very successful podcast about cooking. I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite thing to cook, but you don't like to eat? Does that make sense?
Nothing.
Okay.
Everything I cook, I love to eat. I won't cook something that I don't like to eat. Oh,
Oh
why would I
no,
do that?
but
No.
like for your friends or whatever, you know what I mean? Like
Oh, I
what
don't
it,
cook anything for anybody that I don't because it's sort of like what we were talking about in terms of the roles you play. You know,
right.
sometimes you have to, but when I'm cooking, I don't have to do that. I don't
Uh,
have to cook for friends. I do it because I want to. It's like, as if I'm doing a role in a movie that I really love.
yeah.
So I can't think of anything that I would cook that I would not want to eat. Oh no, absolutely. I'm sort of, at the time, for instance, I'm making some for my wife and I do the sort of everyday cooking. She does the special event cooking when
Yeah.
we have guests and dinner parties and things. And tonight I'm making some chicken paillards, which are just thinly sliced chicken that are sautéed in olive oil and butter and some herbs. And then I'll make a sauce for the paillards, and we'll have a nice salad and maybe some potatoes from the garden if there's still any left in my basement. We'll use some of the potatoes from the garden that I have and had because it's now gone. It's not the season anymore in the
Right.
Northeast. Um, but no, I love to eat what I cook. Oh, absolutely.
How old were you when you first started cooking?
Well, probably really young. I know my dad owned a restaurant,
Uh-huh.
and so I worked in the restaurant from the time I was 9 years old. But my mom was also a good home cook, and there were only two boys in the family, no girls. And my mom insisted that we help around the kitchen, but also that we learn, how to make certain ingredients and how to put things together. And it's really stood me in good stead throughout my life because, from the time, and also my mother was very strongly, she had a very strong belief that I should not. Um, I guess you could think of her as a feminist because she said, for instance, she said, all right, come here. I'm going to show you how to make this particular dish because you're not going to have somebody cooking for you all your life. There's not going to be a woman waiting on you all your life. There are
Yeah.
times when you're going to have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
So it was part, self-reliance, but also part, don't take advantage of a relationship you're in by saying, okay, now I'm going to relax while you cook
Yeah.
if I'm with a mate, a woman. And so I learned at my mother's knee from the time I was a kid, my brother too. Plus the fact we were around food all the time, either at home or in the restaurant. We had at home, my mother was from a Greek immigrant family. My dad was a Greek immigrant. And so she cooked almost exclusively Greek style food at home. And
Yeah.
then in the restaurant, it was very sort of all-American fare. Everything fresh, everything made fresh. My dad butchered the meat. He made the burgers, the steaks, everything. Everything was cut up. Plus, all the desserts were made fresh every day. All the entrees were made fresh. So it was a real kind of lesson in not only just food preparation, but also in respect for food and respect for fresh ingredients,
Yeah.
particularly. As much as you could get in a coal mining town in West Virginia, but we did okay.
I wish my family did that to me because I gotta be honest with you, Chris. I know how to cook some things, but I don't know how to cook. And
If you
I
can read a recipe, you can cook.
really, all
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Ah, well, I'll
Pick
try.
up some favorite recipes sometime and just follow the recipe. It's pretty easy.
All right,
Yeah,
I'll try that tonight.
yeah, yeah.
But in a way, cooking and acting are kind of similar because, like you said, you got to prepare to make it perfect and stuff. You know what I mean? So, like,
Right.
that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. You have a list of ingredients, which is in cooking, obviously what it is. In the movies and the theater, it's the script. And then you have to interpret it.
yeah,
And it's the same thing really with cooking, and that is that even when you get a recipe, you have your own particular way of doing it.
yeah,
And then the finished product is the finished product. And in a way, it's more satisfying to cook than it is to do, for instance, not so much a play, but it is for TV and movies because you have no control over the final product.
oh, for sure.
It's the director, the editor, the studio, the network, whatever. They're the ones who control your performance.
It's
You
amazing
listen.
how strong an editor is because, like, I did a really bad movie and then I watched it and they edited it and it was actually okay. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, but it was like
Yeah,
the worst movie when I was filming
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it.
No, a good editor can really uh, uh, create a wonderful dish out of a very mediocre recipe.
Yeah. Okay,
To
so
extend the metaphor.
yeah. So, my final three questions. One, I wanted to ask, what is your biggest fear as an actor when you first started, and do you still have that fear now?
I think just will they like me, which
Yeah,
I think most actors, if you ask them, you lose that after. Well, you don't totally lose that, but you have to after a while. And that is you have to go in thinking I'm the greatest thing that's since sliced bread. And
right.
they're somebody told me once, imagine the person watching you, if you are afraid of them, imagine them sitting on a toilet, which is, kind of a non sequitur, but it humanizes it to a certain respect. Um, so I think that was probably the thing I had to learn. But on the one hand, but on the other hand, there was something in me that wanted to perform, that
Yeah.
loved doing it. And so I didn't let the fear overwhelm the love of it. And I always loved it. I always loved doing it. It's always been a great source of satisfaction and pride for me.
I wanted to ask you, how do you? I mean, it's kind of the same question where like kissing scenes or fighting scenes, like there has to be a way to block it and stuff so everyone's comfortable.
Yeah.
How do you do that stuff? Like, with whoever, do you like first say, "Hey, okay, this is how we're gonna do it," or do you
Oh,
have
well,
a
I don't say that. That's the director's job.
right? Okay,
Or these days, it's the intimacy director who is working through the director, knowing what the director's wishes are, and then the intimacy director. I've never worked with one, but this is what I'm told happens now. And then the intimacy director works out the chore. It's like dance in a way. There's
that's what I was gonna say. It's
there's
like a
choreography
dance.
to it. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's choreography to it.
yeah. And then my last question for you, Chris, is if you were an ice cream flavor, like a Ben and Jerry's ice cream flavor, and you could call yourself whatever you want, what kind of ice cream would it be, and what would you call yourself?
Well, and that's not what kind I like, but what kind I would be.
Well, yeah, it could be whatever you like, whatever
Hmm.
is
Well,
a
because I love all kinds of. I think I would be multi-ethnic,
yeah,
a multi-ethnic chocolate, multi-ethnic vanilla, multi-ethnic. I'd mix them up. I'd mix those flavors together. Um, even though I have a very specific ethnicity in terms of my DNA, I also grew up in this country and have spent a lot of time with people of all different educational backgrounds, of all different ethnic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, and and I like to think that I'm a mixture of all those things.
yeah. So what would you call yourself?
I would call myself Chris Sarandon Jubilee.
Oh, that's a great one, Chris.
I don't know.
Well, Chris, where can the folks at home follow and support you? Are you on Cameo or Instagram or something?
I'm on Cameo. I do cameos actually a fair amount of the time. I'm on Instagram on the I'm terrible about because somebody runs my Instagram, but just look me up on Instagram. I'm verified on Instagram.
Cool.
Um, and well, actually, I'll tell you right now. Um, and oh, I don't have my phone.
I,
And chrissarandon.com, where you can find all the episodes of my website, Cooking by Heart, in which I talk to people about growing up around food, because I grew up around food. So what was it like when you were growing up? What was it like around the dinner table? And it's not really all about uh, people describing fabulous culinary experiences. Very often they're not very fabulous. Very often they're painful
yeah.
because the things that happen around the dinner table are a kind of microcosm of the relationships of the family. So sometimes they're glorious and wonderful, and sometimes they're not. I mean, I had somebody describe uh, the food in his a wonderful comic friend of mine, a comic writer named Michael Patrick King, who said the only time there was any flavor in the food in his house was when his mother cried in the mashed potatoes. Uh, so there are those kinds of stories as well. And all of those are on chrissarandon.com. You just go in there and click for the podcast. They're on YouTube as well. And then I'm on Instagram. I think it's the real Chris Sarandon. I'm not sure, but anyway.
I'll put it in the notes when I release it.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then I'm, all my personal appearances now, Comic-Cons that I do are listed on the website as well, chrissarandon.com.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for letting me interview you. And,
My pleasure.
And hopefully I did a-okay. And
You did great.
It was a real honor to meet and talk to you. I'm a big fan, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that was the episode with Chris Sarandon. Subscribe, rate, review, and we'll see you guys next week on Razor Riffs.